Hello, I'm David Hunt and welcome to today's show. My guest today, a 10-pound pom at the age of 4. I bet you she didn't think I was going to start with that. Always encouraged to paint and draw and also was taught embroidery. But unfortunately, when leaving school, she didn't get the opportunity to follow her love of art. But she would draw on public transport and in cafes, so she always kept it going. Get this is really interesting. Working in Swedish television, hello, Swedish television, she made a real name for herself and then made it very easy, coming back to Australia, to work at the ABC in graphic design department. Then all of a sudden she decides to totally take a big turn and falls in love with jewellery. And she's hooked. And now she is a highly regarded jewellery maker, works in commission mostly because she's so important in that world, but also runs private classes. Janet, hello and welcome.
Hello, thanks for having me.
My pleasure.
The 10-pound pom, I did not think you were going to throw that one in. I have to be careful what you say.
Well, it was on your little bio thing.
It was, yes it was.
Now, tell us about growing up. The opportunity to study art was never given to you.
Never given to me. I was always encouraged to be artistic and creative and draw and paint, but when it came to having a job, my parents were post-war parents, so I was a post-war baby, and you had to have a real job. And those real jobs included a teacher, a secretary, a nun, or a mum. None of those really appealed to me.
Especially the nun one.
So it was a bit
considering
tricky.
You're not Catholic.
Well, true. So I just really didn't know what to do, and I jumped into an apprenticeship. I did a hairdressing apprenticeship, which I actually made to be very creative for myself, because there are a lot of things that you have to learn about technique, and I loved that. I loved the learning, and I had journals that were out of this world, so they kept them, and they showed everybody up and coming through the hairdressing school, well, this is what your journal should look like.
Yep.
And I wish now I hadn't let them keep them, because I'd like to see them. Yeah, I don't have them.
Oh, what a shame, what a shame.
So I did that for a long time,
yes.
And then I just decided I was going to go to uni. And I remember telling my father that, Dad, I've enrolled in a course called graphic design, and he went like this. And I thought, well, that was encouraging. So I did graphic design. I think I was 24 when I started. So I'm a mature age student at Swedish, which was fantastic. And I got into what was my biggest long-term relationship then, with my then Swedish husband.
Oh,
the one who took me to Sweden.
That's where the meatballs came into it, was it?
Han tog mig till Sverige. And he had been studying at film and TV. That's how we met. So what ended up happening after I finished, we went off to Adelaide and I worked in advertising, which I didn't like very much. I had a baby in tow, which made it a bit difficult. But the graphic design, I'm so grateful for. Not just that, I'm grateful for the apprenticeship, because the apprenticeship, and I didn't realise this until years later, made me understand how I learn. And I learn by somebody showing me something and then allowing me to do it, and then allowing me to do it repetitiously.
Do you think that happens now?
No. No. And even when I was studying at TAFE, which was the 2 years I did at TAFE for jewellery manufacturing, was the best 2 years of my life. And I was 40-something, 43 I think, when I started that. But again, you know, they have to teach you in units. So you do a 3-week unit and then that's it. You're on to the next 3-week unit. And you go, at the end of 2 years, you go, well, I know a lot about nothing. So it's really up to yourself to go and find a mentor. And I had a mentor. I was very lucky, actually. I've had a few great mentors.
But hold on, we'll come back to that, the jewellery side, because I think our viewers would love to know a little bit about you went to Scandinavia because of your husband at the time, and he was working on soaps or something like that in that part of the world.
They didn't have it. They didn't have anything like that. So he went over to establish their first soap opera.
And you went the first time round, and it was really tough. And then the second time round, you slipped into TV.
I had been saying to my then husband Jan, you have to get this man who took us over there in the first place, the big kahuna, you have to get him to get me an hour on that graphic computer. You have to. And I would say to my husband every night, did you ask him today? Did you pester him? Eventually he said, okay, you've got an hour on this day, go in. So, and I think it was 8 o'clock in the morning. So I got in there bright and early, and I sat with this fabulous illustrator. She was probably in her late 50s. Clearly I asked her some intelligent questions, because she said to me, would you like to come back tomorrow then at the same time? And I went, yes, please. So I did that for a week, and then she said, well, I'm on the same program. Would you like to come again? And so I went the next week, and then she introduced me to the news crew who came on after her, and somebody, or they were showing me how to do things. They said, can you draw? And I went, what? Of course I can draw. I'm a graphic designer. So they said, can you draw this picture for us? We want this young kid, a little bit overweight, sitting in his bedroom. He's listening to his boom box. He's got his computer open. He's playing, you know, with his Xbox or whatever. And can you draw a picture of that? Sure. So I drew this picture and I got the job. And I was there for 5 years.
Wow, fantastic. And then came back to Australia.
Came back to Australia, there was no jobs available. I was looking for work. I actually went and worked for a company that manufactured shirts. So I was on the floor packing shirts in boxes.
Whoa.
We bought our first car, which was a Sigma. I had a tape recorder, you know, CD, put the CD in. It was a funny little white car. And I knew I would get a job. I knew it would just take time. And I can't tell you how many interviews I went for, but that didn't bother me so much. It was the job that I wanted that was important. So I got the job at the ABC, working in the graphics department on a 4-month contract. And then I applied for it and I got it, you know, permanent position.
How long was that for?
8.5 years.
Wow.
I had a car accident in 1994 and I had a terrible whiplash, and they had moved the area that we had worked in, the graphic studio, and they cordoned off a corridor that went around to 7:30 report, and we were sort of on the corner of it, and the air conditioning was shite and it used to blow down the back of my neck. So we'd all be dressed like it was the middle of winter when we were sitting in this room. We put illustration board over the vents to send the air somewhere else. Of course, I sent it into 7:30 report and they froze. But sitting there with that whiplash injury, thinking, here I am working with a pen and the motions with this. Swipe down the menu, swipe to the right from menu, swipe down. Oh, terrible RSI in my hand. And I thought, do I really want to be doing this when I'm 50? And the answer was no. So you have to look at something else. And I had already been making jewellery, but with components. So you go somewhere and you buy bits and you put them together with jump rings. And I had this great little business going where I'd sort of sell them and I could make quite a bit of money.
Okay.
But I wanted to learn the artistry of it.
Yep.
It wasn't enough. The difference was when I was making things at the ABC, everything was computer graphics. So it would go onto videotape and then it would go down into the archive. And I never had anything that I could say, this is what I've made, unless it was on screen.
Yep.
So having that, you know, I need to have something in my hand that I've made. So I went off to CAE and did one of their short courses, and then I did another one with the specific intent of getting a portfolio so that I could apply to get into one of the tertiary eds. And went to, as I said, to TAFE, and that was when it was in Collingwood. And it was a long way to drive from St Kilda to Collingwood. I carpooled with a woman.
It's up the road.
No, it used to Punt Road. You go up Punt Road at peak hour traffic.
Okay, Punt Road.
It used to take us more than an hour and 15 minutes to get there.
You could catch a tram
well,
or something. Or
probably could have. That might have taken a bit long. Anyway, what we realised was if we left, because we were supposed to be there at 8:30, if we left at 7 o'clock, we would get there ahead of time because we'd miss the traffic.
Yep.
So we commandeered this funny little room and made it into a rec room. And the furniture students, we said, yeah, you guys can use it as well. Like, it's not just for us. And I took in a mat like this, and somebody dragged in a couch off the street, and the furniture students brought in stuff, and the teachers brought us an urn. And not only that, they'd make sure it was full and turn it on in the morning before we got there.
Beautiful.
So we had this little community going, which was really nice. I still have a lot of contact with some of my lecturers and also some of my colleagues.
So you learnt a lot there?
I learnt a lot. I also had a mentor when I was in second year who was teaching me predominantly wax carving. He was a real guru at it. And yeah, he taught me a lot, but he worked very amorphically. And I kind of prescribed to the thing, even with ballet, if you learn classical ballet, you can go off and you can do jazz, you can do anything. So I wanted to learn a more structured way of carving. So I did what he was always saying to me, let loose down, just go with the flow. And so I made this Möbius curve that was a three-dimensional thing. And he thought it was fantastic, and he wore it. It was the biggest clunky, I found it the other day, biggest clunkiest thing you've ever seen. It cost me a fortune to cast in silver. Anyway, I'm pondering over whether I should melt that down because the silver's worth a lot more now than it was then. But I don't know, you have to keep those things.
Yeah.
Those milestone, stepping stone products that you make, you have to keep them. So, but yeah, he was an amazing mentor for me. But I did come out feeling like I can't put up a shingle now and say Janet Jeweller because I know nothing. You know, I realised how little I knew about anything. And also it was contemporary jewellery. It wasn't fine jewellery. Like, I couldn't sit down and make a diamond ring. You know, I'd run for the hills. So I realised I had to do more. I needed a bigger education. So I went to RMIT. That was really interesting too because that was very conceptual. I mean, I did so many short courses and workshops. So
well, that's really important for people to hear that if you're starting out in that world within any area within the arts. You just can't do the rigid, can you? You have
to think outside the square, and also you have to do a lot of your own research. I mean, I love research. It's part of my ADD thing that, you know,
you've showed me the books. This is my research.
So that part of it was, you know, you couldn't separate the two things. If you were going to do something, you had to, you know, it's like a great big funnel and you pour it all in and then eventually something just comes out, a little spout at the bottom. And I think also coming from a design background, you know, I used to see my colleagues where they come up with an idea and they go with the first idea. And I had a fabulous teacher. She actually has a gallery. And we were doing a project on identity. And I think, well, this is easy. You know, I'm like 45 years old. I know who I am. Well, I came up with all these ideas and she'd go, no. And I what? And I'd come up with another idea. She'd go, nope, you can do better than that. And I said to her, it was getting close to the weekend. Like every project was a 3-week project. And I'm thinking, I'm never going to get any time to get this done. So I said to Paul, my husband, we're not going anywhere this weekend. I'm locking myself in the house because I have to find out who I am. I've got this identity project. So I started to go through cupboards and, you know, and this is like the things you discover when you force yourself into a situation. I found a little basket that had every badge I had ever collected in my whole life, even from my 10 Pound Pom days, when we used to go to Skegness for holidays. A little tiny badge that my father had given me. So I had my Girl Guide badges, I had my form captain badges, I had everything. So I laid them all out and here was my identity. I couldn't believe it. I went, that's it, we can go for coffee tomorrow morning. And I took that to my teacher. He said, yes, you've nailed it. And I went, oh. Whoa. And I had to work like a beaver to get that project done.
What did you do?
I laid them all out, face down on the printer, the copier, and I put a sheet of white paper over it and I photocopied them all. So and then I saw pierce them all out, and some of them were really intricate because they were crests. And because my maiden name is Brown, I strung them on brown linen, and for the years in between, I put a knot. And it's double, and when you wear it, it tinkles. It makes a sound. So all the badges were the same size, but you don't know. Looking at it, you wouldn't. Oh, you might pick one or two, but you wouldn't really know what they were. But I know what they are because it's my identity. So
fantastic. What a beautiful story. I like that.
Yeah.
So therefore.
But I thought she was going to give me a brain hemorrhage.
Yeah. Sorry. What?
I thought she was going to give me a brain hemorrhage.
What? Because you couldn't.
We laugh about it now, but I just never thought I was going to get that done.
But isn't that great that she pushed
me?
Yes.
And that's the thing. She knew that she could push me.
Yep. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So therefore, like down the track, I'm looking over your shoulder. There is this amazing badge with a cloud, a pair of little shoes, and a couple of trees going on. That's a full-on badge, isn't it?
Yeah. It was one of two pieces that I exhibited in an exhibition that was about saving water. And I mean, people did some amazing, beautiful things, but I wanted to do something that was a bit quirky, a bit fun, bit, over the top, big. Most of my pieces that I make are big. And is that the one with the little tree and the boots?
Yep.
Yeah, so the boots were from a Barbie doll.
Right.
So they were cast. The metal, I think, is gilding metal, which oxidises really beautifully black like that. And the cloud is just a piece of opaque acrylic that I carved.
Wow.
But set it with the metal behind it, so when you look at it, it looks like a storm cloud.
Yeah, it's just brilliant. But was that also one of the other ones? Was it the shower with the bucket?
Yeah, the shower, and that's the taps that turn, and the shower head is got a little rose head, and it's set. So the backdrop of it, which is should be tiles, is a bike reflector or a car reflector that I picked up at the $2 shop. And the bucket was what started it. I found that little bucket.
Yep.
Did
it have a hole in it?
No,
no
dear Liza.
Dear Liza.
No, dear Liza, no hole. Well, it did have two holes actually for the handles.
Well, it would have. On the side. I love your imagination. But I want to jump to another exhibition that you were involved in. What's this whole thing with Lady Di?
Okay, so that was another exhibition, and it was called I Do. I do. Well, maybe you do or maybe you don't. Some people give rings, some people don't. It was about commitment rings and what a commitment ring meant. So when that exhibition was happening, it was the 10th anniversary of Princess Diana's death. And I'll never forget where I was when I found out about that when she died. And
I think the world.
Everybody knows. It's like when John Lennon died, everybody knows where they were. And what amused me about that whole thing was everybody said, apropos her comment, that there were 3 people in that marriage, and she used to call the now Queen of England the Rottweiler. So I made a set of rings called the engagement ring, the wedding ring, and the suffer ring. And the suffer ring has the Rottweiler in it. So they were all very well thought through, I thought.
Very complex.
Very complex. And I had done the drawings, which I showed you, thinking, they'll all go this way. But once you start something like that, you realise, oh no, this would be better if I did it this way. So the actual base of the engagement ring, which is in the shape of a heart, and is filigree, it's all saw pierced and then formed. It has a platform that sits on it that has a 3D coat of arms, complete with her engagement ring and the corgis. And that was, she thought she was going into this wonderful marriage with this wonderful prince. The wedding ring is, the base of the ring, the shank of the ring is a lot more solid. It has the platform on it with the carriage, because it was very pomp and ceremony. That wedding was, now when you look back at her frock, you go, ooh. But of its time and in the day, in 1981, I think it was when she got married, it was pretty beautiful.
Over the
Everybody
top.
loved
and that
it.
train.
It was gorgeous,
Yep.
So the carriage, on the top of that there is an actual physical little statue of Charles and Diana that came from a commemorative spoon. and they're standing on a platform looking out, you know, at the world that she's expecting to be her life, you know, her wonderful life. The last one is the same shank, the saw-pierced shank that is on the engagement ring, but it is in reverse. It's upside down, and the Rottweiler is in it, so you could never get that on your finger if you tried. And the plate on the top has the commemorative coin for Charles and Diana when they got married, and I saw-pierced their profiles. But on the back is the Queen, always the Queen in the background. There is an Eiffel Tower, which sits on top of a crown. And poor Princess Diana on the edge of the edifice, ready to fall off.
And where did you exhibit that?
That was in the window at Craft Victoria, and I was responsible for the, well, you know, the dressing, how the whole thing was going to look. And I had some stuff sort of just dumped on somebody else was supposed to be doing it, and this was dumped on my veranda saying, I haven't got time, you can do it. And I went, What do you mean? And I thought, oh, I have to simplify this. What can I do? So raced off to Spotlight and just bought boxes and painted them all white and put ribbon around them, turned them upside down and stacked them like wedding cakes.
Right.
So I had square ones and round ones and everybody's pieces, because there were probably 30 people that exhibited in this. So everybody's pieces were exhibited on this. And I bought these little flute things that you put bonbonieri or whatever in them, and I had those around and a couple of sugar almonds thrown in there as well. And they got really annoyed at Craft Victoria because people kept coming in saying, where can we buy those things? Not the jewels. They wanted the bonbonieri boxes.
But it was like your pieces were highly regarded, weren't they?
I won the award in that exhibition for best design, best use of materials. Which was really lovely because there was a lot of beautiful work in there, and I was actually there when the judging was happening, and I was watching the two judges because everything was judged without anybody's name.
Yes.
And they sort of threw up a few names of very prominent jewellers who they were saying, oh, this must be blah blah's work. And they were doing this, you know, putting on the rings and doing, and it was so wonderful to see, and I'm thinking, nope, not theirs. And then they'd say, oh, maybe it's blah blah, and nope, not theirs. And then when they were told, the interesting thing was one of them was this teacher who nearly gave me the brain hemorrhage.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she said, oh my, these are fabulous.
Yeah.
She said. So, yeah, that was really nice.
Wow, what a continuing story.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah, yeah.
So all of a sudden, you know, like you start working from home, as a lot of jewellers do, because, you know, like it's intense and, you know, like the space. But you decided to have a small little, you know, like class that you teach people.
When I was in my second year at RMIT, I had the option to go into a bigger space. It was a big space. It was the building that had been the old Fleischer's Bakery. You may not know where that was, but it's on Chapel Street. So it was a bit of a grungy room. But anyway, set that up. It probably took me 6 or 7 months. We had benches specially made, so we had 8 benches in there. And I was still studying, but it meant that I had somewhere I could go that was away from home.
Yep.
And I could interact with other people, because otherwise you're sitting at home by yourself.
Yep, true.
So we had different people that came in and rent benches, and people started to say to me, there was a very good teacher in Melbourne who was unwell, private teacher, and some of her students approached me and said, well, why don't you do it? And I went, be stupid? No. And they, you know how people can be? And I went, okay, I'll do it for 3 months. Well, that was the end of the story. I started off with 2, that became 5, and then I did it in an evening, and then I had to do 2 evenings. So this is as well as studying.
Wow.
And then that grew. I ended up moving out of that studio and setting up my studio that you visited the other day. That was, I think, 2004, 2005. And because I was then in my own space, I could do more. And I'd finished RMIT, so I could do more classes. So at one stage I ended up doing 7 classes.
Wow.
And I was also a sessional teacher or lecturer at CAE. So I got a little bit burned out, and then I got sick in 2010 and really had to reassess the way I was working and the chemicals that I was working with at CAE.
Yeah.
because it was not it was not a pristine room. So in in my space, I'm very conscious about the chemicals that we have, because we need to use chemicals. So yeah, I'm very health and safety conscious now.
And you do classes. How many students do you have?
Well, I used to have 5 in a class because I have 5 benches, but during COVID, when you couldn't have a flea visit you in your house, let alone a human being, I just, I couldn't get used to not having other people in tinkering, and then I just had to pull myself up and put on my big girl pants and go, well, this is it. So what I did was I reflected on the beautiful pieces that I've purchased when I've been travelling, because I've been lucky to travel a lot.
Yep.
And when Paul and I are travelling, we go off the beaten track and source unusual places. And I wore this today because this was a piece I got when we were in Florence. It was just a brass pressing, but it was so beautiful. And I said to the woman I bought it from, I would like to duplicate that. She said, oh, honey, she was Canadian, you do whatever you like. So I went, great. So I did. It did not have the sapphire, the star sapphire.
Oh, right on the end?
Yeah, but it does now.
Right, okay. And it's a fleur de lis.
Fleur de lis. So I started to look at all of these pieces, and I was able, because I had nobody coming in, I could spread things out. I could be in my jammies, spread things out and go, that one there and that one there and that will go with that. And I was able to put together like at least 6 different ranges of jewellery. Venetian glass that I bought into pendants and earrings, some more amorphic pieces that were made from sea bamboo that I picked up in Sicily when we were travelling. Don't tell anyone I brought it home.
Hey,
but I did.
Customs are knocking at your door now.
I know. I feel really bad, but I've made beautiful pieces and they're immortalised forever now. So I ended up really relishing that quiet time.
Yep.
And being able to have my bench as my bench. So when I started teaching it, I went, no, only doing 4.
Right.
My bench stays as my bench.
And when, like making for other people, it's only by, you don't do it. I
don't advertise. It's always word of mouth.
You don't have, like Instagram, or you have it, but it's pretty weak.
Yeah, it's a bit... Thank you.
It's not very good.
I know.
For a graphic designer as well.
Do you know, I would much rather be at the bench making. I mean, Paul has an amazing Instagram. He's got 67,000 followers or something. But every time I turn around, he's like, and I hear this music in the background. Yeah, he's doing his Instagram for the day. And I go, yeah, I suppose I should. I will. I mean,
I hope you will.
I've just got a website, tick and a box.
Hey, hello.
Yeah. Apparently people send me messages on my website and I don't even know. It's just by fluke that I find them anyway.
So it's all commission that you pretty much do.
And people have seen my work. They've seen somebody wearing my work, or they know somebody who knows me who refers them. So yeah, they come. And I have to make sure that we're going to be a good fit. And if we're not,
so you're fussy.
Well,
so they come in and you interview them before you...
I do. I have to. If somebody comes and says to me, oh, I've seen this ring and it's like a Tiffany solitaire, and I go, no. Why don't you buy it from Tiffany? Oh, it's going to be too expensive. No, well, why don't you look on the internet? I'm sure you'll find one on the internet, but I'm not your girl. I have to be honest.
Okay.
I can't make something I don't want to make.
Good on you. And that ring that you've got on today, you were telling me outside.
Yeah.
That it's so interesting and it's worth nothing.
It's worth nothing.
Well, it's worth something.
Well, that's the point. The materials in it are worth nothing. It's made in wax and it's cast in bronze. The setting is handmade from brass. The stone is glass. But anybody who looks at this ring thinks it's rose gold and goes, oh my God, that is amazing. I go, yeah, it is, isn't it? Because it's the making and the concept to me that's important. It's not the material. I mean, I'll use any material to make something.
And it's beautiful.
It's really, it's a stunner.
Yeah.
It's a stunner. So yeah, I try to get that across to people too, that if somebody wants me to make something in white gold and it's an engagement ring, I'll say, you do realise that white gold is not white. It's not white, it's yellow, grey. And it doesn't look very nice in engagement rings unless you rhodium plate it, and the rhodium plating keeps wearing off, and you have to have it done every 3 to 4 years. That's very expensive.
Okay.
Do you want this in rhodium, or would you be happier with a hard silver? And they go, hard silver's fine. Do you know? And I mean, I'm cutting myself out here because I'm not making as much money if they're having it. But I want to be honest. Whereas if it's a man's wedding ring I'm going to make, it looks beautiful. White gold looks beautiful if it's matte, and if you put a thin band of yellow gold with it, it's the most elegant, beautiful, stunning looking ring. Engagement rings, no. So, you know, I'm married to these rings once I've made them.
Okay.
So, you know, I don't want them coming back to me going, it doesn't look like it did when I first took it out of the studio. No, they don't. So
And you tell people that?
I'm very honest, I tell them. It's like when I went recently to a surgeon and he told me all of the things could happen, and I sat there looking at him like the bunny in front of the headlights going, really? And how many times has that happened to you? And he said, never on my watch, you know. And I said, right, I appreciate it. And that's my modus operandi as well, that I will tell you, if you want this 3-carat oval faceted stone set with 4 claws, it's going to break. If I took a hammer to this glass table and hit it on the top, it would probably be okay. But if this metal bezel wasn't around it and I hit it on the edge with a hammer, the whole thing would shatter.
Yeah.
That's what's going to happen to your pretty stone that you've just paid $5,000 for.
Whoa, whoa.
So let's put 6 claws around that and you'll have it for life.
For life,
you know?
Inspirational, just our chat today. There's so much more that we could speak about, and I would love to talk to you about what you're thinking down the track, but that's maybe another day we'll do that. Thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Thanks for having me.
My absolute pleasure.
It was fun.
Yeah, it was fun, and like, as I said, inspirational.
Thank you.
I'm David Hunt. You've been watching Janet talk about her amazing jewellery that she makes, and the fact, she's lived in Sweden. Well, lucky her. We'll be back next week, because we're here every week. See you, folks.